Councillor Perks to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. I do have a motion. I move that City Council increase the Facility Real Estate and Environment Energy 2017 operating budget by $1.22 million to implement the unfunded 2017 TransformTO programs, with funding to come from the Extreme Weather Reserve. You can see the CFO is delighted to have this motion moved over there. Look at the big smile on his face. As many of you know, for the last 2 years, Toronto City Council, city staff, many members of council have consulted extensively with Torontonians about the urgent need to take action on climate change and to look at what we can do to meet the emissions reductions targets that the global scientific community feels we need to meet. We have two targets, an interim target that we need to meet and a long-term target. Right now, we are not on track to meet that long-term target. There's no plan we have that will get us there. But we do have some ideas of things that can make reductions, and we are asking staff to take a second look and report later in the spring on ideas for deeper reductions. As you heard when I was asking questions of staff, the community of scientists and economists who think about how we are going to make the transition to a low-carbon economy agree on two central things. First, early action is much more valuable than late action. Specifically, something that reduces a ton of carbon emissions today is worth an awful lot more than trying 20 years from now to find 20 tons of reduction. It's much more economically efficient, and it is also much more ecologically important. The other thing that's broadly agreed on is that the cost of inaction in dollars to governments is much greater than the cost of action. We know this here in the City of Toronto. We've been through having major streets in the north part of the city simply washed out in what was the largest insurance claim in Canada's history. We've experienced the ice storm. We've experienced all of these very expensive costs to us as a result of our changing climate. The measures that I am proposing that we fund here are those measures that city staff felt that they would be able to implement quickly and in most cases would bear a quick financial return to the city. Many of them are programs that actually reduce costs in the long term to the city government itself. So even if you feel that we don't have the resources to take action today on climate change, if you want to make investments in what so many of you have described as efficiency over the years, this is your ticket. This is actual, real efficiency. It's using money up front to reduce the long-term cost of the buildings we operate, of some of the buildings that partners operate. It's making loans to community groups that will be repaid to the city into a revolving fund. It's investing in building the expertise so that our partners, our residents of Toronto, businesses in Toronto can also become more efficient. This is the very core of the thing that so many of you who are against tax increases claim to be in favor of. Now, my first choice would have been that we use property tax revenue to do it, but earlier in the day I lost that argument. So what I'm proposing is we use the Extreme Weather Reserve. We used to call this the Snow Reserve. This used to be the amount of money we put aside for when we get a really big snowfall so that we wouldn't have to have a tax increase in that year. You may have noticed one of the things that's different about the climate we have now, and will become even more different in the future, is that we are going to have less annual snowfall here in the City of Toronto. We will, however, if we don't show leadership and encourage other governments to invest in reducing climate change, have more disasters. So the choice is this: take something where we're putting in more than we need in the short term to avoid huge costs down the road. I encourage you all to support this motion. Thank you for your time and attention.